Work in progress. I totally forgot about this piece. I put it over on the other side of the house, all wrapped up in a tarp. You can see how big it is compared to these mountain bikes. That has zero lacquer on it yet. That's just cleaned off with the, Why are these bees always coming at me? I swear, they're more aggressive than they used to be. This has no lacquer on it yet. That's just cleaned off with a airbrush, basically. The shop vac on blow with these two brushes. So you run the blower while you brush just to get the cracks all cleaned out. And so once this is lacquered up inside, it'll look pretty nice. Even if I don't end up lacquering the whole thing, I'm pretty sure I will though. I don't know why I wouldn't. I've done all the others like that. So this is kind of a cool opportunity to show it tipped over like this. Yeah. So you can see like the bottoms. You can see how it comes right to the bottom on the burn. Right out to the very bottom of the base of the tree. Where it starts to flare out at the bottom. And like turn into the roots. That's probably where the roots started to go. Anyway. I just thought it was a cool opportunity to show it from the inside, tipped over. And these flame lamps, you can get these at Walmart. I didn't realize. I saw these on someone's porch. Went to Walmart. You can also tip them over, and the orientation flips along with it. And it still looks like it's burning at the bottom with the flames rising to the top. So this lamp will fit easily in the bottom of here, and so I'll get a night picture of it with the flame lamp in it there. The other thing is, this is 10 foot tall. I don't have ceilings that'll accommodate this, so for now it's an outside piece, but it's got all the right holes in it for the Swiss cheese, for the little for the flicker lamps to go through. Yeah, only some place with 10 foot or taller ceilings can accommodate this piece. And so I'm going to get a video or a photo of all the pieces together outside in the sunlight pretty soon. And that way this one can be included in that. But anyway, just wanted to document the work in progress here. Show you the king of all plasma fired pieces that was kind of forgot about. It was like the Eeyore of plasma wood. He's like, thanks for noticing me. Someone told me they saw a guy with one of these tree stumps in his front yard that was hollowed out in the middle and lacquered up. And he said, I wonder if he's been watching Jeff's channel. Well, that's the bizarre part about this. After 3 years, the plasma wood was quite the bizarre, uncanny phenomenon at first, but after 3 years it is far more bizarre to me that still I'm the only one. So much so that a guy said he saw one other guy doing the same thing. He had something similar in his front yard, and he said, I wonder if he's watching Jeff's channel. There should be thousands of people doing this. Over in Diamond Fork, I was going to make a video titled 100 million plasma fired trees, because that's approximately how many there are. Once you get into this high of numbers, it's hard to calculate. Is it 10,000, 100,000, 10,000, 10 million, 100 million? Guaranteed, there's millions and millions, and it also depends on what you define as a plasma-fired tree, because it hits everything from the sagebrush to the small clumps of grass to the large trees. Someone was like, oh, I think it only hits one type of tree, and I think if we can, that's their mind playing tricks on them. That's your logical mind playing tricks on you, telling you think it's only one certain type of tree that picks up this electricity, and if we could only figure out what type of tree that is, we could isolate the unique properties of that tree and understand how this stuff works. And then you could pretend you have some sort of control because you now understand it, and we want to tell ourselves, if you could understand it better, then you would have some sort of control over it. That's like the song by Jack Johnson. All at once, the world can overwhelm me. There's almost nothing that you could tell me that could ease my mind. Which way will you run when it's always all around you? And the feeling lost and found you again. The feeling that we have no control. Around our sun, some say, is gonna be the new hell. Some say it's still too early to tell. Some say it really ain't no myth at all. Keep asking ourselves, are we really strong enough? And there's so many things that we got too proud of. We're too proud of. I want to take the preconceived out from underneath your feet. We can shake it off and instead we'll plant some seeds. Watch them as they grow, and with each new beat from your heart the roots grow deeper. The branches, will they reach for what? Nobody really knows. But underneath it all there's this heart alone. And what about when it's gone? Oh, it really won't be so long. Sometimes it feels like a heart is no place to be singing from it all. But there's a world we've never seen. There's still hope between the dreams, and the weight of it all can blow away with the breeze. If you're waiting on that wind, well, don't forget to breathe, 'cause as the darkness gets deeper, we'll sink until we reach for love. At least something we can hold. And I'll reach to you from where time just can't go. But what about when it's gone? Oh, it really won't be so long. Sometimes it feels like a heart is no place to be singing from it all. That feeling that we have no control is what you're trying to escape when you say, oh, I think it only hits one kind of tree, and if we could just figure out what kind of tree that is, we could isolate the properties of that tree, and then come to understand what the unique dynamics of that property are that are causing these particular type of tree to pick up this electricity, and then with the illusion of control back in place, you could sleep more soundly at night. I assure you it does not just hit one kind of tree. It hits every bush and clump of grass. And someone asked me to do a nutshell. Can you just incorporate all this into a nutshell? And at first I wanted to smack them. But I think I actually can. I sent them the link that I'll include in the description, or that I'll play right at the end of this video, of Skywatch Media talking about how there is a fluctuation in the magnetic field that results in a surge of ground current. Ground current measured by probes they put in the ground that measures the electricity. Magnetic field measured by whatever they got up there measuring the magnetic field. And when there's a fluctuation in the magnetic field, there is a surge of ground current that comes up through these trees. Right now, there is lots of fluctuations in the magnetic field because we're on the brink of pole shift. Greg Braden described this in Awakening to Zero Point and Beyond Zero Point. That just prior to the pole shift, the magnetic polar reversal, where north becomes south and south becomes north, and they swap places, it's at its weakest point. The magnetic field is always weakest just prior to the pole shift. And the way that they know this is that where the lava flows come up out of the volcanoes, when it dries and hardens and cools, the little metallic particles within that lava point north, just like a needle on a compass. And as you dig down through that lava, you notice they're all pointing north, and you dig down a little further, and now they're pointing that way, and you dig down a little further, and now they're pointing that way, and you dig down a little further, and now they're pointing that way. The space between the flips can tell you about how long it is in between each polar reversal, and they may have lied to us about how long it is between the reversals. And they can measure that it's at its weakest point just prior to the pole shift, because only the little tiny filings of metal particles, are pointing north just prior to the pole shift. At the other times, throughout the duration of that time period, larger pieces of metal point north because it's a stronger magnetic field. So as that lava is cooling, and in places like Hawaii, it's pretty much coming out year-round. So you've got a constant clock measuring the metal pieces pointing north, and with a stronger magnetic field, it pulls bigger pieces to point them north. With a weaker magnetic field, you only get the smaller pieces pointing north. So they can measure how strong the magnetic field is, and just before the pole reversal, that magnetic field is at its weakest. Right now, we are at our weakest point of the magnetic field. So because the magnetic field is so weak right now, the fluctuations are happening naturally, but they can also induce that thing that I told you, Skywatch Media, that we're going to go watch here in a minute. They can pluck those magnetic field lines like a harp, H-A-A-R-P, and stretch them apart, and then when they snap back together, it makes what they call a skyquake, to where people hear a giant boom in the sky. But that also creates a surge of ground current that they can direct to places like Paradise, California, where it comes up through, and they can ground it and draw it wherever they want, and keep it within a certain place and make it hit this house and not that house, this house, not that house, just like we saw. So 99.9% of what we see in these plasma fires is natural phenomenon due to the weak magnetic field and the fact that we are heading towards a pole shift very quickly. And this is the meaning of the lyric in the Tool song Ænema, where it says, "One great big festering neon distraction. I have a suggestion, it's to keep you all occupied." That whole song is talking about the pole shift. I want to see the ground give way. I want to watch it all go down. Mom, please flush it all away. Mom's coming round to put it back the way it ought to be. It's talking about some sort of cataclysm. And that one great big festering neon distraction, I have a suggestion, it's to keep you all occupied, is what you're going through right now. Everything from COVID to Afghanistan is to keep you distracted from what's really happening. Does that not make perfect sense? And it's happened before. That's why in the end of that song it says, "Time to bring it down again." Again, as in it's happened before, and it's time to make it happen again. So this is a cycle that happens periodically, and people make it through. So, in a nutshell, that's what the plasma fires are about. 99% due to the weakening magnetic field and the polar reversal that we're about to go through. 0.01% directed energy weapons, where they use things like solar magnetic amplification causative configurator, or also known as SMAC. Or HAMMER, High Altitude Meteorological Manipulation Effects Research. Or HARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. They have technology where they can grab these magnetic flux lines and stretch them out. And then when they spring back together the way they naturally do, it creates a skyquake and a surge of ground current. And that is what Skywatch Media. God damn, these bees are aggressive. I don't know what the deal is with them. Skywatch Media explains that there was a fluctuation and a surge in ground current all over, and that was measured in different countries around the world, but there was no fluctuation in the magnetic field. Well, there was. It was just artificially induced. We'll go watch that now. This video is titled, "Earth's Magnetic Field Suddenly Vibrates, Causing an Unexpected Electrical Surge," by Skywatch Media News.
In recent months, the Earth's magnetic field has been very quiet due to a solar minimum, which has been described as one of the deepest in the past century. Geomagnetic storms have become something of a rarity these days, as solar activity has become almost non-existent. Then something occurred on June the 23rd that had solar scientists scratching their heads, as instruments in the UK suddenly registered a magnetic anomaly. The local magnetic field began to oscillate with a continuous wave that rippled around the globe, lasting for more than 30 minutes. So what could have caused an unexpected electrical disturbance to take place? There was no
a directed energy weapon. That is what he's getting at right now. And this was a year or two ago that he produced this.
Or geomagnetic storm to cause the disturbance. Nothing was showing on the NOAA satellites for June the 23rd that would indicate an uptick in solar wind speed. Indeed, there was nothing showing that could explain the disturbance. So what could be the cause of a sudden electrical surge that was strong enough to vibrate
So what he's saying is that there was a fluctuation in the magnetic field that reverberated around the Earth that caused an electrical surge of ground current, but normally the cause of that fluctuation in the magnetic field coincides with solar activity, like solar wind. The name of the process I just described is called Solar Magnetic Amplification Causative Configurator, SMACC, SMAC. That is the directed energy weapon that they use to fluctuate the magnetic field to cause the electrical surge, even when, as he is saying, there is no solar activity that would cause that fluctuation in the magnetic field that resulted in the electrical ground current surging the way it did. Solar Magnetic Amplification Causative Configurator explains the anomaly
around the world. In the Lofoten Islands of Norway, a similar magnetic anomaly was detected on a magnometer. According to observations, the anomaly was quite spectacular. The magnetic field was swinging back and forth by about 1/3 of a degree. Ground currents were also detected, with an almost identical 10-minute period. This is the second time in less than 6 months that an unexpected electrical surge and magnetic anomaly has been reported from Norway. On January the 6th of this year, sudden electrical currents started flowing, creating strong variations in the ground currents and the local magnetic field. The magnetic disturbance was captured by sensors at the Polar Light Center Observatory in Lofoten, Norway. Scientists described it as some type of a shock wave. It came as a total surprise. 15 minutes prior to the electrical surge on January the 7th, a NASA spacecraft recorded anomalies in the interplanetary magnetic fields situated.
This is in 2020. I just noticed the date on the top of his thing. The video will be linked in the description so you can watch it without my interruptions. And it's only the first 5 minutes that he talks about this stuff.
Near Earth, accompanied by an increase in solar wind density 5 times greater than usual. Scientists call the phenomenon strange, suspecting that the Earth may have crossed through some fold in the heliospheric current sheet. What was even more peculiar was that the electrical current flowing through the ground managed to electrify the sky with unexpected vivid auroras.
And that is what Greg Braden said would happen during the pole shift in his video that I watched 20 years ago, Awakening to Zero Point, is that we would see aurora borealis around the world in different places, not just the Arctic Circle and the North Pole, because there would be holes in the magnetic field where that solar radiation penetrates through and interacts with our atmosphere. Last year, I will link in the description a video that I made highlighting Mr. MB3 and something someone sent him where they got northern lights in New Mexico. The other thing I want to say is that we're going to get around to those bees and why they may be more aggressive, because the Schumann cavity resonance vibratory frequency of the Earth is changing. That affects people's mental and emotional state of mind. I've told this story before that 20 years ago, I was telling my little sister that me and the bees have a deal. I don't fear them, and they don't attack me because they can sense when someone has fear, and they know your fear may result in a threat. So they are very offensive and defensive around someone who they detect fear. As I was telling her this, one bee landed on my nose, and one bee landed on my cheek, and her jaw dropped. This proves that there is, exactly what I was saying, a frequency of fear that I wasn't emitting that made the bees feel just fine about landing on my face. And when they did, I felt just fine about them being there and smiled at my little sister. As her jaw dropped because I was just telling her about this situation and the treaty that I have with the bees. Well, these days that treaty is off, and people that want to act like they're some sort of guru go, "It's your vibe, man." Poser douchebags who want to act like they know something say shit like that. I have actual real-world experience with that vibe, man, and with the bees in relation to that vibe. It is the vibratory frequency of the earth that is changing, not my vibe. So maybe we'll talk about that a little more, because after my first plasma fire, when I